This paper examines the transformative potential of markerless motion capture in streamlining the animation of 3D assets and its anticipated advancements in animation and special effects workflows. This approach has been derived from sports science, where high-precision motion capture and inverse kinematics are crucial. This paper assesses how markerless technology integrates into current workflows and forecasts its potential for further enhancement as AI capabilities evolve. So Jonathan has a background in cybersecurity, data science, machine learning, with advanced degrees in computer science and mathematics. During his time at SWRI, he has influenced numerous machine learning techniques across a wide variety of areas, including fugitive leak detection, traffic system monitoring, automotive cybersecurity, markerless motion capture, and general computer vision applications. He's currently working on Active Vision, which is an internal effort to incorporate intelligent analytics from camera-agnostic systems to improve road safety. Jonathan.
Testing. Yeah. There we go. Cool. Clicker here. Great. Okay. So, advance of markerless motion capture technology and the impact of animation. You've heard my background. Part of this is going to be a little bit of a journey for all of us, and we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. So, motion capture has been in animation for a long time now. Definitely not something new. And a lot of this has been with markers. So with markers, we've got a full body suit like that. I thought this image was quite funny. And we have trackers, we have facial markers. There's all sorts of different motion capture techniques. And the reality of motion capture technology, the marker in motion capture technology, is that you have to buy suits that fit the model. They take time to set up. There's limitations on where you can set up. They're just for humans, and the movement is kind of restricted based on however you've set it up. And you know that you're going to end up having to correct a lot of this stuff in post. It's almost guaranteed. With markerless motion capture, we're going to alleviate some of the symptoms that occur in motion capture. And we do that through breaking through limitations of the sensors. Rather than having sensors on the body, we can just use cameras. So here I have an example of what the shot might look like. We have 4 cameras, which are very difficult to see, but I've highlighted them in red. And you can see there's nothing really special about how I've configured the cameras. We literally just took them out onto the field, pointed them at what we were interested in looking at, and now we're able to start doing our markerless motion capture. And the really exciting thing about the markerless systems is we can get ready for the future. We're going to be able to capture more animals, be able to capture more objects, and convert them over into a digital space. We're also pushing for doing this in real time, and we're considering the model and the motion sort of in separate form factors, which we'll talk a little bit more about here in a second. So, as an overview, we're going to talk about our perspective. I'm going to tell you a little bit about SWRI as it's relevant to the conversation. We're going to talk about how this technology has gotten its roots in biomechanics for sports analytics, how we have transitioned this to animation and are still in the process of translating this to animation, and where we expect markerless motion capture to continue to evolve. So first, our perspective. We're an independent, nonprofit research organization ranging from applied research in deep sea to deep space. And when I say deep sea to deep space, I really mean it. These are all of the different areas that we cover. The nice thing about covering all of these different areas is we've got over 3,000 people, all with advanced engineering degrees. I being one of those people with a background in machine learning, computer visions, and that kind of capability. And the nice thing is when you get a bunch of engineers in the room, you can really tackle a wide range of problems across all the different industries. And where we fit is we're really trying to go and take the latest and greatest in academia and translate that into industry. A way of thinking of it is that we're bridging the gap between the fundamental science and taking that to commercialization. And at the end of the day, we are a nonprofit. We were mostly just interested in pushing forward the engineering aspects. With that in mind, we're going to talk about our biomechanics. And the way that we're able to get our biomechanics system is we put computer vision specialists in the same room with biomechanists, and then markerless motion capture was born. So you see this video right here is something that a sports scientist might be able to use. The orange is an expert, the blue is a novice, and this video is playing our analysis of how are these two lining up with one another. And you can see we've got some fancy numbers on the screen there. And it looks like they're showing up on the big screen pretty well too. And all of this is routed for optimizing human performance, where we say we want the human to perform in the basketball case. How do I get the most free throw shots? And we're actually able to go and with a markerless system, still be able to derive high precision values that are useful for the sake of optimizing human performance. So the way that this works is we take in video feeds from one or many cameras. That distinction is very important. One or many cameras. The utility of using a multi-camera system is if you're going markerless, there's obviously situations where you could have obstructions. If I put my hand in front of my face, you can no longer see my face. So having the multiple cameras enables us to get higher fidelity key points that can overcome some of the obscure issues. So more cameras, more accuracy, but we do work with just a single camera system. And we use computer vision and AI to detect key points. There are certain motion capture markerless systems that'll stop once we have those key points. However, because we have the biomechanists on staff, we do what's called inverse kinematics, which is effectively using the knowledge of the physics and the limitations of the human body to actually inform what are the real movements occurring from the model that's being observed. And so what this does is this provides kinesiologists or sports scientists a way to give feedback to how an athlete is performing. And it's been used by Olympic Diving Committee, NBA, MLB. And the interesting thing is if you think about divers are not a group that are going to be willing to wear markers during their performance as they're going into the water. This is also a very high-speed event. So being able to have a markerless system that is able to fit into these more niche applications like diving is really powerful, and not only powerful but necessary for sports analytics. And now we come to the hard truth of we've got a bunch of engineers who put them in a room, biomechanists and computer vision specialists, and we get biomechanic output. But this conference isn't a biomechanics conference. This conference is about media technologies. And one should see this. We see the high precision that we've been able to get with our studies in biomechanics, and the natural conversation will lead us to, okay, how do we take this into the animation world? Because what we are effectively doing with this technology and have been doing for a number of years is with a multi or single camera system, portable, right? It's a software solution. So it doesn't require specialty cameras that have LiDAR or anything like that. This is just vision only, able to take this all across the US, wherever you need to, and get a real markerless capture for critical analytics. So now we want to translate that to animation. And so translating into animation has some certain challenges. Firstly, outputs is a major issue, right? Because we can't do everything. And I think from markerless systems, the facial recognition and being able to do facial movement to animation, that is a really thoroughly studied area. I think in productions you still see it where they've got the camera pointed at the face. It's a very well explored problem area. But those systems, when I say system, I'm talking about the camera and the model working synchronously in order to produce an output. Those systems that are used for face don't necessarily work for the body because the body's different. There's different key points you need to look at. There's different trainings. It's a totally different model. Same thing for the hands. Hands have been a long sought after solution to find. And there are models that are good at hands. There are models that are good at bodies. There are models that are good at faces, but there's no one model to rule them all. which is a challenge when we want to translate to animation who wants to do everything, naturally. There's also the processing time. If I have a 10 camera system, that's fantastic because we're going to be able to get a really clear view of a model, but that also means that there's more for the model to do. So the more cameras we have, the higher accuracy it goes, but that also means the more processing time we have. More processing time means slower production, so we don't want that either. And then there's the problem that we're working on today, which is being compatible with animation software. And animation software is a very general term. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of things that certain groups care about, other groups care about, and trying to create one workflow to unite them all is a little bit difficult, to say the least. And ideally, we want to be agnostic, right? At the end of the day, what we do in the sports science world is we have an engine that is able to go and create precise outputs for human performance. The goal here is we want to be able to use that same engine, but for the animation space. So we came up with a strategy on how we're going to implement this. First off, we want to do this marker reduction. And it's weird saying marker in a presentation that is markerless. But when we say marker in this context, we're talking about key points. And for a clear description, a key point is some point on the human body that we are able to use to derive other motion. This might be the shoulders, it might be the hips, very similar to the kind of points that you would see on the suits. So in biomechanics, we need high precision. We use 85. For animation, we can likely get away with less. That way we can further reduce the processing time. We're also going to use something called model quantization. Exciting, not super new, but still developing capability in the machine learning world is quantization, which effectively, if you think about a computer and how the models are typically operate, they're going to use what's called 64 float precision, which means there's 64 bits that are used in the precision of these long decimal numbers that are hidden in the weights for the model to operate. Turns out, many solutions don't require 64 bits. You can actually get away with 32, or maybe even 8, or maybe even 2, depending on your application. There is a decrease in accuracy when you use less bits, but it goes much faster, and the hardware required to do the machine learning requires much less power, processing time, and memory to run. And the final part of our strategy is trying to get this generic output translation. So we're targeting to go and showcase this in Blender, and potentially other sorts of popular software like Unreal. So this is kind of the targeted workflow where we've kind of added on this whole animation part at the end. And so when we talk about the impact that's going to happen once we've gone through this whole workflow, we're going to be able to continue to leverage what motion capture is already doing, which is enabling more lifelike motion in a creative's vision. Rather than having to completely rely on the animator to do all of the motion, you can actually have an actor go and inform how the motion is going to be carried out. And a critical thing here is that this whole process is designed to actually generate assets. We've heard a lot about generative models today, and generative models are very exciting, but they tend to focus on generating imagery. And imagery is very exciting, and it can create dynamic videos, but trying to correct stuff in images means you have to rerun the model again. If you provide an asset, you've provided a different layer, a different way of the human actually being able to work in tandem with the model. And the other part of Markerless is just reducing the cost. All you need is a camera, right? Ideally multiple cameras, but at the end of the day, a camera-only system is going to be able to provide a significant cost benefit to what is currently available, as well as the kinematic understanding. And as an engineer, this is what we're really excited about, because now we actually have not only the human in a digital world, but we have a kinematic understanding of what are the forces that the person is actually exerting on the world around them. You can think about in baseball, and this is a really important topic in the sports science world, because there's actually a measurement of how hard are they hitting the ball in that swing. And that's the kind of technical detail we want to be able to provide to animators to enact their creative vision easier with. And so when we talk about the conclusions, right, the real conclusion and the real impact, I think that is important to discuss here, is the transition from something that was in the biomechanics space to the animation space and being able to leverage all the tools that exist in these other market areas. So I've got a fun video here. We did some monkeys a while back, and we're actually able to get a pretty good motion capture of the monkeys. You can see their skeleton being captured right there. And you can your brain starts to really expand when you think, okay, I don't have to put markers on a monkey. I couldn't even imagine the pain that you'd have to go through there. You can just do this markerless. If you think about for nature documentaries or anything that you need to film pets or animals, now this can be done. We can also work with held objects, as I described with the baseball bat, where not only are we going to segment the bat so we know where the bat is in the image, but we actually understand the rotational forces and the dynamic kinematics going on behind that baseball bat. So you can almost imagine we can have someone swinging a baseball bat, and we can have a digital ball that they could be connecting with, and we could actually project what are the physics that are going to happen once they actually connect there. So there's some really exciting stuff that happens when we start combining and merging these two different technical fields. And so I want to really be clear here on the differentiating factor between generative AI and and what is enabled with motion capture. So generative AI can absolutely create really stunning and dynamic animations, dynamic videos. They're beautiful. And they can generate exciting scenes that even maintain the sense of story that you typed in. They're really fascinating, and they're only going to get better. But what it's not going to be able to do is it's not going to generate assets. I will say that there was a presentation this morning that described how they handle assets, which was really exciting. And I will caveat and say there are absolutely models that can do this sort of thing, but there's no model that you're going to type it in and it's going to perfectly execute your vision on the first try. One of the things that was talked about in an earlier session was a 300 to 10 ratio of 300 prompts to get 10 useful videos, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. And this really goes on to the point of there's going to be a human in the loop. Even as AI advances, really the goal here is maintaining and extending the power of the human and the power of the creative, which we can do easier with motion capture as we still are generating asset, not just generating a frame and then having to go back to the model to generate the next frame or correct the frame and continuing that pattern. So with markerless motion capture, we can animate assets with realistic motion. Same thing with markered systems, but we can do it for less cost. We can also leverage all sorts of other tools since we have designed this as an engine and we're focusing this on an engine to be able to integrate into other workflows. I think one of the difficulties when we're working with a lot of AI systems is AI systems are usually boxed. This is the AI, here you go. And the problem when you have a boxed AI is that whenever you have a niche application, suddenly what you have in that box is not so useful to you anymore. And so again, focusing on the idea of designing these engines and being able to take an engine and seamlessly put that into a workflow that you potentially already have is kind of the future that we want to be able to build, not only with this markerless motion capture, but with other sorts of AI models in general. And we want this to be able to be enhanced by animation experts. Again, we're not expecting that the markerless motion capture is going to be stark perfect. It's going to be very good, but there's probably some cases where the actor might not even move in the way that the animator or creative owner wants them to move. So these corrections are natural and they should be expected, and we want to encourage it. And markerless motion capture, again, like generative AI, is just not going to be able to fully do anything itself. We are still a long ways away from the complete animation workflow. There are ways in which you can do it, but these take time and they take iteration with the model. We want to be able to put the human in the loop and work in tandem with the model as much as we can. There is a professor at Stanford, his name is Guy Wang, and he published a textbook called Artful Design. And it's one of the most interesting textbooks you'll ever see because it's printed like a comic book. I would highly suggest going and checking it out. And the thing that he says in there that really resonates with me is that tools are meant to extend us, not replace us. And I think when we talk about this markerless motion capture and being able to apply that in the animation world, there's a lot of power in being able to provide an extension to the animator through this markerless system. Whereas with generative AI, we're limited in what the AI is actually outputting. There's a difference between generating an image and generating an asset, because a human can much easier work with an asset using all the tools that they've been using for years, rather than working with an image that they have to go and reiterate until they get the image that they actually want. So in conclusion, markerless motion capture is rapidly advancing. And I like to be very clear and state that it's advancing not only for the sake of media and entertainment, it's advancing everywhere. This is used already by sports teams, and this is only going to be getting better and better. Advancements in this markerless motion capture have really enabled our ability to take a human and convert every part of them into the digital world: the body, the face, the hands. There are certain parts of markerless systems that are more matured than others. I think the facial stuff is the most mature, but we shouldn't discount the speed at which all of the other markerless captures are evolving. And finally, I want to reiterate this idea of transitive technology. Improvements in the biomechanics space can really make an impact to animation workflows. They can really make an impact in ways that we're not really even sure of what the future can hold, right? The ability to actually have a deep and intimate understanding of the real physics is going to enable much more realistic motion and animations in the future. And this is just the start of it. We've talked a lot about generative AI, but computer vision techniques are still rapidly advancing as well, enabling us to in easier and easier and easier detect those key points. That way we're able to get higher and higher fidelity captures of a human in the digital world. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Hi, I'm Jill Boyce with Nokia. How many cameras do you need to do some of the harder things like, hands?
So the question with how many cameras do we need to do something like the hands, it's not a question of how many cameras we need. It's a question of, number one, what are the cameras actually focused on? With the body, you want to have a wider view because there's wider motions to make. However, with the hand, you need to have a much tighter shot so you can actually capture all of the motion with the fingers. As for how many cameras, it really depends on the situation. I have a video in here, which I probably can't access because it's a hidden slide, but one of the applications that we actually had with this was with surgeon training. And so with surgeon training, the idea was we wanted to get a digital representation of how the surgeon motion is, and we were able to do that with just a 2-camera system, like one on each side. So really the critical part of this is just positioning the cameras.
But could the technology work if you had both, close up on hands as well as others on the body, that like different field of view in the different cameras?
Yeah, I think the way that you would be able to do this all at once is with a system of cameras all situated optimally, right? And again, these are separate models. So there's one model that you have for the body that may take cameras 1, 2, 3, and 4 that are all wider shots. And then you might have one model that's for the hands that might only take 2 shots, but they're more focused in on where the hand motion is actually occurring. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I got one more, but just if someone else was raising their hand. So you're a research institute. So, how does this get in the hands of people who want to use it? Are there tools, that are doing it? Are you working with other companies that are making things?
Fantastic question. So, we are a research institute, but we are I'm going to go back a few slides here. Oh, I will not. Never mind. So we're applied research organization. Typically, the way we do business is in just we're kind of, you can think of us more like contractors. And so whenever we design an engine, we really want this to be flexible. And at the end of the day, we're nonprofit. So we're actually looking for ways in which we want to work with different people in the industry. And we're actively open to having conversations to figure out how do we get this in the hands of the people that need it. So, to answer your question simply, talk to me. we can get it out.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I'm Madeline Nardi. I work with Rockstar Games. Your presentation really focuses on single capture for one actor. Have you looked into multiple person?
Fantastic question. You caught me. I'm just kidding. So we absolutely can do multiple capture. It's really just a matter of finding the right means of where are we going to take that multiple capture. The trick with the multi-capture is you need to have a bigger camera system, because rather than just capturing one person, you need to capture multiple people. But the real technological difference is there's a filter that just says this is person A, this is person B, right? The max that we have tested is 1. But we have theorized that we can certainly do more. In other project works, we have done person identification. So that's a capability we already have. It's just not a capability that has been brought into this particular research just because we haven't had a need for it yet. Does that make sense?
How's it going? Peter Allegro, also Rockstar Games. I was just wondering if you could answer to how you train these models, if you could. Like, is this edge detection, or is this a lot more complex stuff going on there?
Sure. So the way that we've been able to train this data is that we actually had several projects with the VA and airmen, and we were able to collect quite a massive training set of real-world data compared against markerless systems. That's something that we're really proud of, and we keep kind of close to us, right? In addition to that, we have used simulation to further advance the training of the model. But we're pretty happy about it. The portability of this is one of the things that makes it really exciting. I had another slide in here that didn't quite make it into the presentation, but we actually were at the NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters show, this last year, and we had a 20 by 20 booth. We stood up a 5-camera system, and we were able to go and start detecting people, just attendees. They come in, we go and just turn it on, they do the little dance, and we could get it that easily. So we're pretty proud of it. I imagine there's problems, like, black on black, right, will probably cause issues, but did that answer your question? Oh, so this is a vision only. It's just RGB. Like, that's it. We don't have any other sensors going on here.
Yes. Hi. 2-part question. First, you mentioned that there was a book published by a Stanford professor in regards to your topic today.
No, that is just a book I like.
Oh, okay.
It is. It's Guy Wang Artful Design. It's printed like a comic book. I think it just has some really good principles about how AI can really impact how we do our job.
And if someone wanted to learn more about this topic, would that be a good book to like?
I would say if you want to learn more about the topic, you can talk to me after.
Okay. Definitely got you. Thank you so much.
Time we have for questions. I'm very glad you could all join us today. I hope you found these papers as fascinating as I have. Enjoy the rest of the day and evening, and we will see you back here tomorrow.